Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Workflow Wonders. I'm your host, Alex Storey, co-founder of Skill Mammoth, a business systems and tools consulting firm right here in the Twin Cities. We specialize in helping small business owners reclaim their time by streamlining workflows through automation and smart system setups. And we have the privilege of serving clients all across the United States. But let me talk about this podcast because that's what we're here today to do, which is our Workflow Wonders podcast, where we dive into the operations of various business owners and industry leaders, exploring their unique processes and uncovering ways to make them more efficient. So today, we're shining our spotlight on Paul Domeier, an insurance agency owner right here in Minnesota with American Family Insurance. Welcome to the show, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it is my pleasure. What is something exciting going on in your world? Could be personal, could be professional.
Well, personal, my youngest daughter turns 1 actually like next week. So I'm just excited to get to celebrate that with her a week from tomorrow. And outside of that, like the agency is still here and growing, so that's always exciting as well.
Yeah, that is super exciting. Kind of like your two children there, right? Your business and of course your actual physical progeny. It's always fun to watch them grow and get bigger. Is your youngest, are they toddling around just yet?
Just about. I mean, pretty
Just
much.
about.
She learned how to crawl upstairs before she could learn how to walk, so that's very terrifying, but yeah, she's very mobile. She's running
That's
around.
awesome. Yeah, my daughter's a little bit older than yours, and she's walking everywhere. I make a joke, I'm in the middle of a healthcare thing right now. She's walking better than I am, so that's kind of where we're dealing with it. But yeah, so Paul, before we jump into the specifics, I'd love to hear a little bit about you and your agency and kind of like your background. So I guess starting off, can you just tell us a little bit about the history of you and your agency?
Yeah, of course. I joke with people that I was a real estate guy before I became an insurance guy. Um, I've been investing in real estate, playing around with real estate for going on 7, 8 years now. But about 2 years after I got introduced into the real estate game and was trying to learn more about it, I was told by a mentor of mine, you should learn about insurance. And at that same time, I had one of my best and oldest friends' uncle reach out and was nice enough to consider me for kind of like a mentorship program. He was looking to retire inside of like 2, 3 years, and he really wanted to build someone up that could potentially take over for him when he wanted to pull the trigger on retirement. So I jumped into insurance thinking that this would be like a 2 to 3 year kind of gig so I could learn more about how the world works, and found out I actually very much enjoy insurance, as goofy as that sounds. It just kind of works for a lot of parts of myself, and the things that I get to help families with are the ways I get introduced to my community, both like from a customer standpoint and the individuals I get to work with, other local professionals who are trying to do the same thing I am. It's a fun place to be. It's a fun place to play. So now I joke with clients, I'll be in this chair till I'm fat and bald, joking that the balding is starting to kind of happen sooner rather than later. So yeah, insurance has been fun. I started my own agency December of 2019, right before the whole world changed, and we've been growing at a pretty decent pace ever since. So to me, that kind of tells me like the way I think our agency can provide value, the way we get introduced to individuals, the market has appreciated that. So now I'm trying to work with individuals like yourself and people with expertise outside of my own to figure out how I can scale my impact. And that's really been what we've been focusing on right now is, okay, we are a referral-based agency. We don't do internet leads. We're not cold calling people. We spend more time per client than I think any other insurance professional does. So how do we keep that type of service, that white glove treatment, as I like to call it, but how do we do, 10x the amount of business we do on a monthly basis? So that's led me down a super interesting path of just learning more about how the world works. How do deeds get recorded when real estate changes hands? How do I meet with potential home buyers to help my referral partners, the loan officers and realtors that support us, help them grow their business? And that's pretty much where we're at today.
Awesome. And I do want to testify here for Paul. We've worked a couple different times, and you should see this man light up when he talks about insurance. He makes it interesting, makes it fun. Definitely a unique approach compared to at least my outside looking in perspective on what insurance can and should be. So that's awesome and exciting that you're talking about expanding that white glove service beyond. What is like the typical profile of like someone who walks through your door?
Well, believe it or not, we actually do help a decent amount of what we refer to as walk-ins. So people that find out about us on Google, usually we're told it's the Google reviews that kind of spark the desire for someone to come in and see if we can help with their personal policies. But still, I'd say, a good chunk of our business, 85% is all done through emails, phone calls, and now services like this where we can jump on a video call. Most of my clients, to give you like a demographic, who am I the most impactful for? It's really first-time home buyers and now move-up buyers. When people are buying their first home or even their second home, which we've learned, it's like a chaos, a tornado of information and documents needed and everything, like inside of a month. And then all of a sudden they buy the house, they move, they sit down, they take a deep breath in their new living room, and they're like, okay, we have no idea what we just did. So one of the ways that we've been more helpful is just kind of understanding how realtors work, understanding how loan officers work, and being able to be kind of like the bridge for the client in a lot of different ways. So typically the people that we're helping, they're in their mid-20s to I'd say like early 40s, buying their first house or again, that first move-up house. If it's the first move-up house, they kind of have an idea of what they're doing or what's to be expected, but they're really like fish out of water. So, we focus on selling through storytelling, selling through education, and really just making sure the customer feels comfortable with what we're talking about, what we're providing. Because in our world, I don't sell like a physical product. I sell a contract, a handshake, and a promise. So we need to be detailed and clear about what that promise entails. That's what customers, like our preferred customer, they appreciate that. They want to know, what is homeowners insurance? How can I use it if God forbid I have to? How can I use all these products and this information and just be a more successful homeowner? Because in this office, we also believe in just the power of real estate in general. I'm a huge believer that owning real estate can change your family's trajectory. Mm-hmm. Financially, it can really set your kids up. That me and Alex were both in the same age. We're starting our families, so like I'm super focused and goal oriented towards helping my daughters have just a comfortable life. So a lot of our clients are in that same boat. They're just wanting to understand, okay, how do I own this house successfully? So they're in that age group. They have value in understanding the contract, value in having a professional. They're usually comfortable doing online stuff like we do, customer portal for billing and all that. They like all that. But at the end of the day, they want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to like one of 5 people in here in this office that they'll get to know over time and be able to have somebody walk them through not only, buying the product, but having to go through the claim too.
Yeah. No, that's huge. So, and it's great context because we're about to jump into an activity where I'm about to ask you a lot of those questions one more time, but we're going to visualize it because here at Skill Mammoth, we're all about visualizing. And so I've set up a Miro board, which is just a fancy digital whiteboard. And we're just going to go through your entire customer life cycle, just from the moment someone hears about your agency all the way through renewals and referrals. And so I'm going to list out some key stages. We'll get a little scrappy here as we kind of put it together, but this will give us a good idea of like kind of someone's journey through your organization. So 1 second while I pull this up and sharing my screen. Boom. Okay. So awesome. So we're going to go ahead and start with, how do people learn about you? You kind of already mentioned, I've lit up the areas where you mentioned. You said face-to-face networking, you got referral networking, full transparency. I met Paul through a local networking group. And then I know I just lit up paid ads just because I know that's technically through American Family, right? But I mean, that's a huge part of, why I imagine you partner with an agency like that, or I guess a firm like that, because they have such big ad spend. But other than that, like what other avenues are folks hearing about your agency through?
So we do some organic social content. I see that on there as well.
Yeah.
We have like friends, family, clients that will share our Facebook posts, and then we get leads through that too. Believe it or not, I don't do a ton of paid ads. So yes, one of the benefits of a captive agency working with, a Fortune 200, 500 company like AmFam and everybody else is that huge ad spend. We do stuff a little bit different on there. So we probably get, less than half a dozen opportunities a month on that side.
Okay.
And then now this ECRV mailer, which I'm assuming we'll dive into a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
That will be a big part of where we acquire clients. But really, Alex, if you were to look at our business, our intake, 90 to 95% of our new clients, they actually are given to us, or they're told about us through a warm introduction and a referral of a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a coworker, a COI, a center of influence. So that's the realtor, the loan officer, commercial lender. That's where most of our businesses came from since day one. So been in the business, in the industry for 7 years. It's always been referral focused in that.
Okay. Yeah. And that is what I like to say when we talk about referrals is it's a really good problem to have, because that means you're selling something that people like and people like to work with you. But the problem, in quotes here, is that it can be tough to predict and it can be tough to necessarily scale. So it's awesome to hear that you're starting to do some cold outreach there to kind of supplement what you're already doing. And then I imagine what you're doing is using all of those case studies, all those positive interactions that you have with your previous clientele and your reviews that you mentioned to help paint a picture for when you're reaching out to folks via cold, which helps them warm up a little bit faster.
Totally. Yep.
So going back to your social content, where are you posting and how often?
Facebook right now is really all that we're doing.
Okay.
I use Facebook a little bit differently. So we have an agency Facebook page. I also utilize my personal Facebook page to connect with people like individually. That's going to be more for like the referral partners that I mentioned before, realtors, loan officers, auto sales. But we're posting in there. It's about twice. I'm looking at my sheet here, my cheat sheet. It's twice a year. Or wait a second here. 62 posts a year. So
62 posts a year. Okay. So a little bit more than once a week.
Yeah, we're doing about 5, a little bit more than 5 a month. And that's just on the agency page. So on my personal page, those two, that has about 50 a year on there as well. So if you would think we're posting about 110, 115 times a year on social media, about 9-ish posts a month.
Good. Okay. That's awesome. And so one thing that I just curious, as we're thinking about organic content, right? Because you're doing your Facebook posts, do you internally, your clientele, do you send any communication to your previous clients regularly, like a newsletter drop or anything?
To previous clients or to current clients?
I guess both. Yeah, I guess current clients, and then if you are talking to previous clients in any form or fashion, just curious.
Yeah, so we definitely run a Recapture campaign. That's what we call for clients who have been insured with us in the past, but have chose to move their insurance elsewhere. We have a running joke in the office. The only reason why people will do that is price, because obviously we're just a bunch of rock stars over here. So reaching back out to them just to make sure if they're interested in coming back, that we can rerun quotes and show them what our current pricing would be. So those are for previous clients. For current clients, we do run some value add touches with no marketing goals behind it. We also do run campaigns annually for umbrella sales and more seasonal vehicles like ATVs, motorcycles, jet skis, snowmobiles, ice houses. So we run campaigns for that. And I would say those we probably do, only like 3 or 4 of those per year. So like on a quarterly basis.
Okay. All right. And so you have your Recapture campaign, and then you what we'll call current value add campaign is what we'll call it.
Yeah.
For your current customers. Okay. And that's more for upsell, but also just to show them value. Like, okay, this is why I'm paying for these guys because they share awesome tips, that kind of stuff.
Totally. Yeah, we do a lot of that through our Facebook too. Like, it's winter season now. Here are 10 things you should do to prep your home for the changing
Yeah.
weather, right? So we do a couple of those as well.
Awesome. Okay. I think that's really good best practices there. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So we have partnerships as well. So this is a pretty good, robust, like top of funnel, if you want to call it that. I know some of these are a little bit more middle of funnel, but you got your face-to-face networking. To recap for folks who aren't watching this right now on the YouTube, but we've got face-to-face networking, we've got referral networking, we have cold outreach, which we're going to talk a little bit more later with this ECRV mailers. We have some paid ads via the American Family, lead into 5 opportunities a month. We are doing organic social content a little bit more than once a week, with some founder-led, or I guess owner-led content, which is good. I think you and I have talked about this before, Paul, and I know folks in the podcast have talked about this, is in 2025, you need to put a face to the name, and like people are buying from people, they're not buying from logos. So I think your instinct to post from your own account is huge. And that's going to drive business in the long run versus company accounts. And if you even look at the stats, like industry wide, not necessarily just in your anecdotal experience, because it might be different, but statistically, you're going to get more traction and impressions on a owner led social media than the company led one too. So that's good. Then we have partnerships. I think I heard you said real estate agents, brokers, lenders. These are just natural referral partners for you. Did I miss anything there?
No, I'd say that pretty much sums it up for the partnerships. Yep.
Okay. And then we have the Recapture campaign for the previously insured customers that might have left because of price, like you said. And then your current customers value add. So really good. I think that's pretty robust. So, all right. After these guys are interested, after these leads have come through, what's the next step? Are you like doing, I assume for referral networking, it's like email or call intros, or like what does that
Yeah.
look like if somebody gets referred to you?
One thing I'd add as like another top line funnel too is we call it QNS, quoted and not sold. So we're also trying to reach back out to customers we've interacted with in the past but weren't able to sell or help them for whatever reason. So that's a big one for us. But
Yeah.
really, you were asking like, where does all this boil down, or where does it start coming into the agency? We just call that our intake form. So it's it's a Microsoft form.
Okay.
We can send clients. It takes them, usually less than 5 minutes, but we say between 5-10 minutes to fill out. And then everybody in the agency gets an email on that. It goes to our inside sales team to start quoting and going through the sales process with them. So it actually starts with a phone call, just acknowledging, hey, I got your intake form. This is who I am. So Christina will usually introduce herself, or a member of the inside sales team, and just kind of like start to set, a standard. Hey, you're going to hear from us in 2 to 3 business days with quotes. We're going to send you this this landing page that'll give you information about the policies, and then we're going to schedule a follow-up. So we start to kind of outline our sales process for the client at that point.
Yeah, that's awesome. Microsoft Form is great. I imagine just because you said you get a notification, is it plugged into Power Automate?
No.
Is that? Oh, okay.
So there's room.
All right. There's room. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I assumed. But yeah, the Microsoft Form's great. And then for your ECRV, so these are mailers that you're sending to folks who are in a position to switch insurance. And we'll go over in the specifics later, but are they getting are they also filling out the form? Is there a link, or are they asked what's their CTA there?
Yeah, so with the ECRV list, we send out 2 mailers currently, and then we start calling. And in those mailers, they have a QR code where they scan it, brings them right to our Microsoft form, and they can start filling stuff out right there.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. So, all right. So I think it's a pretty good funnel going to that form. Are there any areas where it's not going to the form? Or is it typically people fill that out? Like, what happens with those partnerships and more like direct referrals? Is it just email?
Yeah, so the direct referrals I usually get introduced via email. And then I'll usually do a little bit of preliminary research on like the house that they're buying, so I can supply some value right in my first email. Whether that would be
Yeah.
like, hey, here's a characteristic for your house that will be very important to you when it comes time to have this conversation. Like, for example, you have a detached pole barn in the back that's greater than most insurers will allow on a personal policy. So here's something that you're just more than likely going to have to deal with. By the way, here's kind of a solution to that problem. It could be, oh, I love that you're buying in this area. Just as a heads up, I know the infrastructure in that area for plumbing and electrical is older than what you'd see in most Minnesota. So prioritizing endorsements like service line coverage, equipment breakdown, that's going to be very important to you. So I start that email off with a small piece of value add, so the customer knows like my goal and everything is just to be able to be helpful, whether I earn a sale or not. And then in that email, I'll give them our intake form. So we're really working to push everything through our intake form so we can do better tracking of like the amount of business we're doing on an annual basis. The only thing that goes outside of that that intake form would be like commercial insurance needs. I'll usually just
Okay.
handle that directly with a phone call and, taking notes with the client just kind of more manually. And commercial insurance is a little bit tricky to try to automate and systematize like that. So that's the
Yeah.
only thing we handle outside of the intake form.
Okay. That makes perfect sense then. And now everyone gets to see how I cannot spell commercial. Is it two M's? Commercial. All right. Hey, there we go. Awesome. So commercial needs, insurance needs, that gets handled by yourself. Everything else gets funneled into the form. Gold star, by the way, for me as a operations guy, systems guy, automation guy. That's huge because you can kick off a whole bunch of automations just from that one form, which will help you save time. I'm happy with forms. Don't know if I personally would go with Microsoft Forms, but I mean, if it's included with what you got, go ahead and use it, right? Awesome. All right, so that goes to your inside sales team, and then they do outreach to the customer. And I imagine there's some sort of like follow up rhythm where after X amount of reach outs, you either say it's a lost deal or going to one of those campaigns that you said. We
Yeah,
don't need to know the specifics, but
nothing's lost. Every time we don't earn a sale, we're just trying to set the next appointment. So
okay.
if a customer like doesn't respond to our outreach, generally we still have an idea of when they bought the house, which means we know when their renewal dates are, which means we can
Yeah.
add them to
Okay.
our Q&S process. We're really, when you start off referral based only day one,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lean first year. So you learn really creative
Yeah.
ways to make sure every lead counts. And even if it's not this year, it benefits you next year. And if you're going to, from this seat, really just try to be helpful to people, even if that means sometimes turning sales away, there has to be a way for you to capitalize on that in the following renewal, that next time they come up for shop.
Huge. Yeah, and for those of you listening or tuning in, this is such a crucial moment when it comes to your lead lists and your prior customers and the leads that you've lost in the past. Because what Paul's talking about here is no matter what business you're in, typically folks might be in a different position the next time you reach out to them. Maybe they got a new job at a different company and now they're in a position to buy whatever service or product that you're selling. Or maybe they've got new funding as an organization, if it's business to business, for example, and now they can buy more. Or, in Paul's example, right, renewals are coming up. We can kind of get our name in there as far as an option for them to choose. So I love what you said about how nothing is lost. And because I think a lot of business owners tend to kind of just, okay, I'm going to delete them from my lead list and just never talk to them ever again. But, there's a lot of gold there if you're looking for it. So, I mean, check out those buying signs, using whatever tools you're using for your leads. You can use tools to find signals. So if people get funding, if people change positions, so you get those alerts. But I won't deep dive too big into this right now, but happy to chat on a side basis. But awesome. Great call out there. So outreach to customer, nothing is lost. And then I imagine there's like a quoting process. And are you using, I assume there's like some tools that AmFam gives you and whatnot. And then
That's right. Yep.
And then it's just kind of like we'll switch to a diamond here because I imagine it's up to them. So your client is, approves quote, right? And then yes, I imagine you just continue.
Yep. Yeah. If we get a yes from the client, so they've been introduced to us somehow, they got a hold of our agency, or we're reaching out to them. They fill out the intake form, goes to the sales team. Sales team has a majority of the information needed. They send quotes. We have a follow-up call. Client says yes. So then internally, that goes to kind of like the service division of our agency. And they will start working on processing applications and getting them onboarded.
Okay. All right. So processing all of that and getting onboarded. Okay. Cool. That's good. So I will go ahead and put that out. And then if no, what happens?
Q&S. They get
There we go.
plugged right into our Q&S process. And we do make it a point to tell them that too, is like when we call them in 6 months or 12 months, we want them to remember who we are and remember that the overall experience with us was positive. We were professionals. We were fiduciaries. We acted like fiduciaries in that moment. So I kind of nerded out and dove into that part. Like if they're going to say no, then great, set the next appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Was it just price? Was there something I could have done better?
Yeah.
No, it's usually just price. Okay. Can I call you back on this month? And here's why. And here's what I expect to do differently. Here's how price may change. Here's why price may change. So we put a little bit of time into actually like what I call selling the next appointment, quote unquote, selling the next appointment.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think I do want to call out something that you mentioned is always ask those questions too. Is like why there was a no, right? You don't necessarily want to be like, okay, well, bye forever, right? You want to, use that information in whatever way you can. If it was price, like you said, if it was service, if, I don't know, they have a friend that works at a different place, it's good to collect that information. And then as you manage as a business owner, then you can kind of tweak and adjust to kind of minimize those objections whenever you can.
Totally. And if you're selling like a complex product, like insurance can be, you'd be surprised how many times we hear no, and when we ask why, they're wrong on the why. So they could be like, well, no, because you're priced, you're priced too high. It's like, well, did you actually even understand the pricing I sent over to you? Because that can be complicated for people too. Or yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I expect it to be more expensive because your other quote had, X, and I do stuff with Y, and here's why Y is more expensive than X. And you'd be surprised how many of those you can turn around or at least have people be like, okay, well, I already signed up over here, but please call me in 6 months. I'm very excited to pick this conversation back up. So, yeah, that Q&S, or when you hear the no, it's crucial what you do at that point too.
Awesome. Great stuff. And to kind of round out the rest of this flow here, I imagine after they're onboarded, it's kind of support and claims at that point. If there's any claims, you kind of, that's as needed kind of situation.
Yeah, so our onboarding, we obviously take payment. We make sure they're set up with all the tools to be a successful customer for us too. So we have like a customer-facing app. We make sure that's downloaded on their phone. We make sure they have all of our contact information. We're asking for Google reviews at the time of sale.
Good.
If we don't get the review, we follow up a month later, make sure we can get the review at that time. If, we're monthly auto pay over here, so that's where most customers choose to sign up. So a 1 month touch point is also super valuable too, to make sure, like, did the billing get set up correctly? And just as a reminder, again, what we're really doing there is we're going after that Google review. But then after that point, yeah, support and claims. Now, our support, there's a process there we can dive into too, if you'd like, Alex. Claims, we have a process around managing claims and servicing claims, but obviously, that's as they come. There's no work there.
Okay. Yeah, I can yeah, so I mean that it's as needed, but support in general, that's more or less like, what we kind of talked about before, just reaching out, like you said, like those milestones, like checking in every month. So I think that's good. Do you do any video testimonials or anything like that?
We don't do video testimonials now. If you were to look at our Google reviews, we have a running joke in the office that like we have 78 Google reviews, which is not a ton for certain businesses. That's great for us. And every review we have is like a paragraph from our clients. So our running joke is that like it's impossible to get a no comment 5-star review. So that's a positive thing because we use that similar to how I would envision most people using a video testimonial is we'll just kind of like screen capture that Google review where they have a paragraph and a half about why we were doing well for them and why they chose to insure with us. And then we share that. That's part of our campaign around Facebook posts is I think it's twice a month we share Google testimonials on our Facebook accounts.
Okay. That's good too, by the way. Like brag as much as you can. This is me to everybody watching, business owners. Just make sure that you celebrate those reviews, those testimonials, those case studies. That social proof is so important. I mean, folks want to buy from people that other folks have had good experiences from. So make sure that you're shouting it out, even if you're only getting like 30, 40 views. Just having it out there helps out considerably. Speaking of like organic content, I just closed a $12,000 deal the other day simply because this person saw a post I had on LinkedIn and reached out and was like, hey, I want that. Can you do that for me? And it would not have happened if I didn't just brag about or just share or spotlight, one of the experiences that one of my other customers had. So, and I don't get a ton of views, but there is, like you said, you have like 72 reviews and whatnot. That's all you need to make a ton of good, to get a ton of good leads, right?
Yeah. We call them humble brag posts, where we try to make a post about like what it was the customer needed. So what was the problem? What was the solution? And how were we introduced? So that's kind of like a format of some of our posts that you'll see is like, Alex Storey was trying to buy this house. He needed insurance. We helped with this certain product. And we kind of call out like, that service line endorsement was super useful to him. And then people will kind of resonate with that too. So to your point, yeah, humble brag posts. Awesome.
Humble brag posts all the time. I'll put that right here. So I won't necessarily, I'll mention it anyway. Do you do anything for offboarding? Like when folks, have you ever had to be like, you can't be one of our customers anymore? Or like, or do you do anything if folks just naturally maybe they move from a house to like an apartment or something? Is there an offboarding process?
Yeah. Our offboarding process, if you were to look at like 10,000 foot view of the agency, that's probably where we could use a little bit more structure. Thankfully, we generally don't have a ton of attrition. So it's kind of why we've been handling it a little bit differently, but they go right into our recapture list. Okay. So we have a recapture program to reach out to them. We generally wait about a year, maybe even 2 to go back after those clients. We do have clients we remove from our recapture list if it's not someone we're trying to build a business around. And yes, we have had clients that we ask, very politely, can you please find insurance elsewhere? Insurance, right? Like it frustrates people, and I can resonate with that too. But that's our offboarding. Yeah, we try to collect some information. Who are you insuring with? Why did you leave? Again, we're just trying to figure out, was this a servicing thing? Could we have done better? Or was this a price thing that's kind of outside of our control? If it's a service thing, then it's right into, or I'm sorry, if it's a price thing, it's right into our recapture list, and we try to earn them back when our pricing gets acceptable to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like what, to ask that question is, why did you leave, right? And that's a good question to ask. I think a lot of folks, I think you're asking the right questions at the right times, because I think you're never going to get that information otherwise. So it's good that you're asking that when you can. So awesome. All right. So thanks for letting me go through kind of like your day one to day end here with your customers and how you're working with folks. Yeah, I think that's really good. So You encourage happy clients to spread the word, leave reviews. You recapture those folks using your different campaigns. And then you have, a couple different areas where we're doing outreach, and you have that referral loop, which is great. I think that's super robust. I think I'll go ahead and stop sharing, but let's talk a little bit more about that area that you're starting to kick off, which is that ECRV stuff. So as I figure out how to stop sharing my screen, here it is. There it is. It says stop, not share. Okay. Paul, so thank you for letting us walk through your operations there from day one to day end with your customers. I'd love to hear more about that area that you're trying out now, which is that cold outreach with the ECRV mailers. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, and Alex, it's funny. You kind of hinted at this in the beginning. You're like, man, you can build a referral-based business. It's great, but there are some problems with that too. I mean, our closing percentage is some of the highest, like in our district, or from what you would expect from an agency. So that's great. Like, the people we work with are wanting to work with us, and there's some real big positives there. The downside is the consistency, the ebbs and flow of that referral base. So I started this not wanting to change the direction of the agency. I started this wanting to add some consistency, especially as we work now to build out a sales team. It's like, okay, I need to come up with leads on a consistent basis for this team to be able to work, additional to like our Recapture, our Q&S, and everything else. So that's what started this whole journey. I feel the need to preference that because I don't want it to take away from what at least I personally view as the importance of that referral-based business. So when we started this, how do we come up with more consistent lead flow? It was, well, who are we trying to get in front of? And it's that demographic we were talking about earlier. And I apologize, Alex, because I was really talking about mindset. And that's key, too, because I feel like in insurance, or when you sell a product that literally almost everybody needs, you can get lost in, like, who's your demographic, right? So we focus a lot on mindset and talk about what type of customer are we trying to build an agency around. The people that value having us, value understanding the contract, value attention and help through claims. All that is still true, but going into this made us look more quantitatively, like what are the people we're trying to talk to. So they're definitely homeowners, right? If there's not a home policy for us to quote, we lose a lot of the value of this agency because we're very skilled at helping homeowners. We also wanted to look for individuals who are married or in a long-term relationship. Whatever that looks like. Now we're dealing with two individuals. We have more auto products to bundle with, and now a multi-vehicle bundling discount that we've seen really helps on American Families pricing. When we have two individuals, it also opens up the door for more of a need on excess liability coverage and more of a need for life insurance. So great, two other products that add discounts to the underlying ones we were just discussing, the home and the auto. More policies per household. That higher policy per household count usually translates to a higher retention. And more products usually translates to a customer that, all right, I'm spending all this on insurance. I should probably understand how it works. Now we get their attention, we get their ear, and we get to show the value of who we are there too. So homeowner, married or in long-term relationship, multi-vehicles, working professional family is generally who we're targeting. Those with, I would say, average, if not higher or above average credit scores. So we know that influences pricing. We know that helps us win more too. So that kind of led us to digging through a bunch of different public records and finding this ECRV list. ECRV list is just how the county records deed transfers and real estate transactions. So now we understand through this list who the sellers were, who the buyers are, when they bought, what their closing date was, which will translate to their renewal date or effective date on their home policy. Generally, when someone buys a home, they'll line up the autos to be on that same renewal schedule. So we kind of understand what the renewal of their insurance package is, or we're getting a better idea of what their insurance package looks like. And we can make assumptions based on people that bought during certain years over the last 5 years. So if we have individuals that are buying homes at a time when mortgages are expensive and fees are expensive, if they're doing like more of a rehab where blue collar labor is expensive, materials expensive, we could probably safely assume that there is a higher level of income or maybe just a higher level of assets that this family might have. that allows us to be more impactful for them as well. So that ECRV list helped us in a lot of ways. Basically, what we're doing is trying to mail those individuals at a certain timeline of when we think price-wise we can be super competitive for them at the same time. So we're trying to marry those two things. Like, what's the value of the agency? What do we do? And how do we get in front of the people we know our pricing is going to be just stellar for? Because if we can do both of those, I mean, who wouldn't want to say yes? So that ECRV list, that's kind of how that's evolved, or why we started looking into that.
That's awesome. And so with the information that you're getting from ECRV, is it accurate? I know, you walked me through it in the past, and I know there's phone numbers and whatnot. Are you finding that's actually getting to the customers?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's a gold mine then. That's huge. So yeah, to shout this out to everyone, especially in Minnesota, check your resources, right? There's a lot of publicly available information that you don't necessarily need to, pay $10 a lead or anything to figure out. And with some smart scraping, some smart filtering, you can find good data. Just for context, I'm working with, a partner out in Ohio, a roofing contractor, and I just built a scraping tool that gets them a lead list of folks that haven't had a roof updated in 15 to 20 years. So it's a very similar proof of concept of just, hey, these folks have a need, which is a new roof, and we can find that out with publicly available information because they haven't had to get a permit in that period of time, or their house was created around this time, right? So great resources out there. Check them out. I try to think creatively. And then if I could add one extra step, just because it's what my business does, is plug in automation. So use like tools like Appify, Browse AI to kind of automate some of that scraping, so you're not having to manually click on those links and whatnot. But yeah, anyway, that's a great thing that you're doing, Paul. I'm super excited that that's working out for you.
Thank you. And yeah, to your point, that's like, you find all these really neat things, and then your bottleneck is yourself. So you almost need to rely, we were talking about this earlier, but once you find that lever to pull, then it's like now you start to utilize and rely on automation so you can still be effective with the leads that you're getting.
Yeah. So so what Paul's referring to, there's an influencer named Nick Sarayev. I would definitely recommend checking him out if you're into technical stuff. But he has a quote from one of his videos where he talks about how really what business is trying to find a lever that gives you $1 every time you pull it, and pulling that lever as many times as you can. And so that's what Paul was talking about there. I mentioned it right before he jumped on, but that's at the end of the day what you're trying to do, is trying to get as much leverage in quite literally, the term, right, in lever, right, to help you out there. So that's awesome. And so you're doing mailers, and from what I'm understanding, this is all handwritten. This is all personalized. This is all, super bespoke how you're contacting these folks. And then you have a multi-channel approach after you send out these letters to then follow up with a phone call. So it's not as out of the blue as like just, hey, buy my stuff. It's, hey, did you see our letter?
Totally. Yep. And, I would just to kind of clarify one thing there, like we send 2 letters, our mailing schedule of who we hit, according to when they bought their house, and our mailing schedule on when the mail gets sent from the agency compared to their renewal date or their purchase history date. All that is super intentional. The letters that we send out are, I would say, like 95% printed, but we do a very intentional, like handwritten prop to it. So like we print out a letter. If you were to receive one of our letters, Alex, it would say Alex and wife, handwritten. You get typed verbiage. We're handwriting your renewal date in there. We're starring it. We're drawing a little arrow to the QR code. We're saying, something like, let us help. We only win when you win. So we're trying to like show the clients we are going at this like shoulder to shoulder with you. This is not a you on this side of the table, me on this side of the table. It's, if you want help, that's all we do. Call us. we can try to help. So those parts are handwritten, and then the envelope itself is handwritten, a name, address. Yep, those go out, and then our phone call, exactly to your point, it's like, yes, those letters, we get some leads off the letters, but the letters are more just so when we call you, it's not out of the blue. And like when I call you, I know more than likely who you and your spouse are, especially if your spouse was involved in the purchase. And I know the date that you bought, and I know your home address. So I can be extremely personal on that first phone call to let you know, or to try to convey, like, this is not it is a cold call, but I know who you are, I know where you live, I know a lot of information about you, and genuinely, all I want to do is help. Do you want to chat, or am I wasting my time?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And what Paul has done masterfully there is the well-researched cold call and the personalization, because that is something that, if there's anything that is going to piss people off is if you're under-researched and maybe you're talking to the wrong person, the wrong decision maker, etc. Or, the problem that you're solving doesn't even exist for them, right? So having that research, that personalization is huge, especially if you're doing cold calling. There are some tricks that you can do, especially in the business space, using tools like Clay, for example, to enrich that. But, this is a perfect example, Paul, what you're doing with the ECRV. But yeah, awesome. I think that's super cool. All right. I guess, are there any bottlenecks that are frustrating you that you'd like to chat about?
So just because it's front of mind and the newest, kind of little gadget in the agency is that ECRV list right now, we haven't been able to find a very effective way at pulling the information off the county websites. So we're signed up. The county will email me every Monday and give me a list of transactions from the previous week, which is great. But again, we're following up with a different timeline. So we're typically reaching out to people who bought 2 years ago today. So that's kind of one of our little variables there. So it's how do I use this information, get it into a usable format like Excel, that then I can start to filter and tinker with. Big picture is how do I pull this information and have it talk to information about the permits, the example you gave, Alex, for the roofing company out in Ohio. That information is just as valuable to us. So if I could pull information from permits that have been pulled, tie that to the buyer and when the real estate transaction happened, and have it in an Excel or a list, a format that I can plug into some other marketing websites to help with the mailers or to create handwritten letters, things like that, that would be extremely helpful. Right now, we are doing that all analog, one at a time.
Yeah. So I have a couple of suggestions, and I think I kind of spoiled the first one, but the first thing you can do is use a scraping tool. In my recommendation, it would probably be Browse AI, just because you can build custom bots, whereas tools like Appify, you usually have to buy pre-built bots from the store. And so to kind of oversimplify, and I tested this out for you, Paul, by the way, before this call, so I know it works. So what Browse AI does is basically it's a robot you can send to a website, and you can give it instructions. So in this case with ECRV is make a search, right? So you'd want to give it the parameters like what county you're looking at, and then it'll do that search and give you that list, right? And then I wish I had some stuff to show everybody else on the screen here, but this list that pulls up, there's a link, and each one of those links opens up a page that gives you the information that you're actually looking for, with the customer's information, their phone number, the date information, all that kind of stuff that you'd like. So what you do is you get a second bot that pulls the information from that first list, and it does the same exact thing. It just clicks on each one of those links, and then it scrapes that data into a CSV, which you can put into Excel, and most tools will let you import directly into it. So if you have a CRM, you can import a CSV directly into it with that client information and phone number, all that kind of stuff. Or if you're using a power dialer, so if you want to cold call hundreds of people all at once, you could import that right into the power dialer. And then, with the added bonus of it'll also filter out anybody who's on a do not call list, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you can just call them without having to type in their numbers one after another, power through 50 calls an hour, right? And so that is what I would recommend early on. And this is on the cheap end. If you're doing it yourself, I imagine it's going to be less than $200 a month if you're doing it yourself. And then obviously, plug in Skill Mammoth. This is a service that we can offer. You can check us out. Just book a call at skillmammoth.com if you're looking for someone to do it for you. But the other thing that I wanted to mention too on the back end, because once you get that information, how do you enrich it? So you can have it sent to a database. So that could be as simple as a Google Sheet, or since you're using Microsoft, an online Microsoft Sheet or something, is like the simplest version that you could use. If you want to get super advanced, you could invest in something like Airtable, which is just a fancy database that you can put a little bit more information into it than just simple text. So you could scrape images, for example, and scrape pictures of, this is the picture of their real estate agent or their house. You know what I mean? However detailed you want to get into it. Airtable's like $30 a month or something. But bare bones Sheets or Excel will work fine. And then you can use other automations to start putting information in that one line. So now, like, you could have another bot that could look at those deed websites. And I will say, just from a Minnesota perspective, Paul, because I looked at it, the deeds in Minnesota they save them to PDFs. Not deeds, I should say permits. Why did I say deeds? So permits. If you're looking at roofing permits, that kind of stuff, PDFs are a little bit harder to scrape than just text-based. So you could export it and get that information, but it won't be as clean as like a nice list. And I'm still trying to tinker it with it because obviously I live in Minnesota too, and that's where lots of my clientele is. But there's other things you could do too, by the way. You could scrape homes.com, for example. Homes.com, I don't know if you knew this, has information on sold homes as well, not just the stuff that's currently being listed. So that's a great place you can use for at least build dates, which might give you ideas of how old their roofs are from there and whatnot. But anyway, don't want to get too in the weeds. So a database, and then you can enrich those rows with as much information as you want. So some examples, I'm in business to business. My database typically is, their name, company name, their LinkedIn URL, because I'll reference that a lot, their company LinkedIn, their website, any social medias they have, Facebook, Twitter, company Facebook, and then other information too, like how many employees they have at the company, what is their yearly revenue, did they have any recent funding, and then that information helps paint a beautiful picture for me if I ever do outreach or cold calling. I'm kind of a pansy personally. I don't do a lot of cold calling. I just don't have the grit and determination for it. I probably should, but I'll send out a DM or an email or something, and then once I get on the call, I'll go from there. But that for everyone online here listening to this, enrichment is key, and automation can help you do it at scale. It gets expensive the more if you want to get all those details, it can get kind of expensive. But if you know exactly what you're aiming for, like those 3 to 5 key pieces of information that will make you dangerous, just go for that. Yeah. Anyway, the other end too. So you mentioned the handwritten part of your letters. Going out. So there is one recommendation I have. It's kind of pricey, so it doesn't scale the greatest unless you know that your conversion rate is high, and your client acquisition cost is low. So handwritten.com, I use that for my personal clients. Handwritten.com is, I think it's about $4 a mailer it scales with volume. If you send out 1,000 of them, it gets a lot cheaper. But at one mailer, it's $4. That includes an envelope, just like you were talking about with handwritten features. It includes a actual letter with a QR code you can put in there with handwritten features. And when I say handwritten, I mean they literally have a robot holding a pen in a factory, and it physically writes on the card. So it looks and feels like someone hand wrote it. You can even pick the penmanship that they have. I use Mellow Max. If anybody is looking, Mellow Max is my penmanship that I chose. And what's really nice about handwritten, for those who are automating, is it has an open API, which means you can plug it right into tools like Zapier or Make and whatnot. So for example, taking this all the way through, Paul, you could start this flow with your 2 robots that are scraping that information from the ECRV, and then you could end it with that automation handwritten sending that letter out automatically. And so you don't even have to touch it, and then you know that, okay, every week or so I'm sending out 100 mailers. Now, like I said, that the $4 a mailer is probably more than what you're spending right now. So that would probably add up, and you'd be like, whoa, I just spent $1,200 this week on sending out mailers on handwritten.com. But so maybe trial it is what I'd recommend.
I'm more wondering, where do I buy one of the robots?
Yeah, that'd be nice too. Just have it in your office.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. One thing I will say, it might be worth reaching out to Handwritten. They've been pretty good with me, so I sent them my business cards and stuff, and they'll pack my business cards with my actual letters and stuff. So that's been they've been pretty open to that and pretty communicative as far as customer service goes. So they might be like, hey, if you want to spin this up yourself, this is what you need to do. So I don't know if they want to give away the gambit that way, but it's they're a great company. One thing that works too, by the way, and this is just to everyone, not just to you, Paul, is put something in your cards if you want people to open them. If people feel like there's something nice and fancy in there, they're going to open it up. I send instant coffee packets in mine a lot of the time, because it's like, oh, I can't buy you a coffee in person, but here you can add this to your drink. So it's kind of like my thing, and you can kind of feel it in the actual letter. Obviously, gift cards is going to make people open it, but that, once again, it gets a little bit more spendy if you're sending that at scale. But business cards or even coupon cards are helpful too. But I'll pause for now and let Paul kind of jump in.
No, I love that idea. We've put business cards, we've put certain, like almost 3D stickers in our envelopes before too, to try to encourage a higher open rate. So I definitely know there's something there to that. To be honest, on the ECRV list mailers we've been sending out, it's literally just been a piece of paper. So we could probably even do better on that side. And the handwritten side, I think in the world that we live in today, if you're going to try to do mail at any kind of volume, and especially if it's to a cold, relationship that's not there, there needs to be something in there. That's why even when we were like, we don't know if this will do anything, let's try it ourselves, we started off with handwritten envelopes. And there's a lot in our letters that try to stress the importance that, we're not sending this to everybody. We're local. We're right here. This is our office. You can Google us. Here's our Google reviews. So we're trying to also stress a local presence too, to make sure people are aware. Yes, this is, marketing through mail, but no, we are not this national company that's trying to buy your house for pennies on the dollar, or that's offering you an insurance policy that doesn't exist. There's a lot of mailers going out for that right now, saying you can get your, we sell homeowner policies for $800 a year. It's like, that has not been in Minnesota for the last almost decade now. So we know customers are getting just beaten up on the mail on that side, especially from our industry or just real estate in general. So we're trying to find ways where we don't come across that way. So yeah, the handwritten, I think we will always be at least some form of handwritten in the letter and the envelope. The envelope will be handwritten. I'm serious about buying one of those robots. I think I might need to reach out to him and be like,
yeah,
give us your old one, let us get version 1 from you.
Yeah. No, I mean, it'd be huge, and you're going to have to tell me how that works for you.
Yeah.
Because I think that's huge for, that pattern interruption is what I like to term it as, is if you want to make yourself stand out, just do something different than what everyone else is doing. And, like you said, it takes a little bit more effort, but I think the effectiveness is much higher when you kind of put that personal touch there.
Totally. And to your point, you can rely on companies like yours, Alex. You can rely on automation to help you streamline the parts that don't actually move the needle. So then you, as the owner or the sales professional, can focus on the parts that actually move the needle for you, like including something in the envelope, having it be handwritten. Those things is what, especially in the insurance world, it's like everybody is way overeducated. You almost have to be to work in this industry. So to have someone like that who has, a decade of experience, they hold multiple licenses, they're continuing their development through continuing education provided by the state, they're going to conferences, that is our agency. Those are the people that make up our team in here. To have them be focused on any part of the marketing that doesn't actually move the needle is difficult. Like what we are right now, right? By manually scrubbing that information off the county websites. All of that is what I'm trying to get streamlined so we can continue to focus on even the handwritten part. If we can't afford to work through handwritten.com, if we got to then just be doing the handwritten envelope maybe, or something more of that nature. So
yeah,
we have a couple different letters that we've been sending out, and now we're in the tinkering mode of figuring out, does this letter and layout resonate or produce a different result than the first one that we did? And if so, why is that? So even talking to the customers that are responding and saying, hey, just like we do on the Q&S side or just like we do on the sale, why did you call us back? Why did you respond to that letter? What stuck out to you? What can we help you with? It's the same question, but it's being more direct even towards the marketing.
Yeah.
We even have a little in-house Excel sheet to track that too. Why did they respond to this piece of marketing?
Yeah, no, and that's good information to have because I think, if you don't know why, like data's king and you need to find it in whichever way you can. So it's good that you're asking those questions. All right, Paul, thank you for sharing that. To round out today's podcast, there's a couple questions that I ask all of my guests, or I should say, this is episode 3. So the guests that we've had so far. But the first question that I'd like to ask you, just in general, what's your favorite productivity hack or tool that helps you stay on top of daily tasks?
What's my favorite productivity hack or tool that helps me stay on daily activities, daily tasks?
Yeah. It could be, we could even just round it out. What's your favorite productivity hack or tool?
Honestly, this might be kind of boring, but Audible.
Yeah. I mean, that's not boring. That's huge. Yeah.
I struggle to read. I am literate. I can read and write. But to find the time in the day, especially when you got like kids running around and everything, to sit down and read is very difficult. But the importance of that, like when I started focusing on self-improvement, if my wife was here right now, she would laugh and make fun of me because she calls them my self-help books. But if I were to look back on the last 7 years and go like, what moved the needle for me, it would be dedicating time to growing my knowledge. It's the same with, even knowing that the county records deed transfers and puts them out in the public for everybody. These tools can be game changers for our businesses, Alex, is hopefully for some of the listeners that you have on your podcast. But if we're not aware of them, I mean, you're not going to have any of that success, or you're going to spend a ton of money and a ton of time and a ton of headaches trying to create it. So as boring as it is, and I'm sorry, third guess, and I don't have like a revolutionary answer for you, I'd say Audible. Just the ability to listen and continue to grow while you're driving, I think is incredible.
Yeah, and no, I'm not knocking that at all. Audible is so huge. I think we probably go through 5 credits a month here at my house. And I just want to just highlight something that you said about the importance of knowledge and seeking it out and learning more. I've heard it phrased this way. When you're learning, you're maximizing the surface area for lightning to strike, ergo for success to happen. So that example that you mentioned with the ECRV, like that's huge, right? You want to make sure that next time there's an opportunity that you have the knowledge to approach it in the best way possible that yields the best results for you and what you're trying to do. So I think that's huge. Love Audible. Is there a book that you'd recommend for folks to read in that kind of like, self-improvement, self-help kind of category?
Yeah, most of mine are, nerdy insurance books or personal finance books. But Traction's an incredible business book. I'm sure many of your listeners will have heard of that. If I'm the person for your listeners that's saying this book for like the 5th time and they haven't read it, just pick up the book, start reading it. That's a great one. I like to read books like The Psychology of Money, The Richest Man in Babylon. Like those kind of personal finance books I think is really useful for business owners as well, because a lot of this is managing cash flow and managing money too on top of your business. I do want to back up though, Alex, because this was the lightning strike you were just referring to, and actually as like a huge shout out to what you're doing and to what you're doing for businesses. Completely genuine. The videos that you helped me with, that was a force multiplier. So let me give some context for the listeners. I talked a lot about a white glove treatment and what we do for clients. We used to spend between 1 and 3 hours on the phone with each client, walking them through the policies, selling with stories, selling with education, and it was useful. Again, closing percentages are high, feedback from customers is great, so it's a really, really tough thing to try to walk away from. But we learned after 5 years that's not a very scalable thing. So what we did was we created this landing page where I can take videos on each line item. For your listeners, think of it as like a video that explains the value and the usage of each product that you sell. And I put them all on one landing page with the help of Alex. So now when I send quotes to clients, instead of me spending 1 hour to 3 hours on the phone, I send them that landing page. And that landing page carries about 95% of the value that I was giving with literally 2% of the effort. So you want to talk about a force multiplier. I genuinely cannot speak highly enough about that. And I'm to the point now where I'm telling other agents, if you're not doing this, you're doing one of two things. You're either doing a disservice to your customers, not explaining what you're selling them, and just hoping for them to understand, or you're wasting your time. And I say that kind of harsh intendedly. Like, I'm not wasting my time. I'm spending it with clients. Yes, you are, but there are other clients out there that need your help too. So introducing the videos, force multiplier. The intake form, force multiplier. Microsoft Forms, there are better options out there. That's just what I have. But think about like the time to schedule a phone call with your client, then the time on the phone to gather information like, what's your driver's license number? Well, hold on, that's in my car. Let me go grab it. My purse is downstairs. So, yeah, I don't know why those didn't jump out at me. A Microsoft form or an intake form for your clients to collect information for you to start the quoting process, and a landing page with like product usage, product knowledge videos, insanely valuable.
Well, I will take the testimonial when I can. So thank you very much, Paul. And I'm happy to hear that it's helping you out so much. You know, there's so many times where I'm like, well, I hope that helped him, and then I just kind of go on to my next client. But
Skill Mammoth has allowed me to do so much more business. I didn't even follow up with you, dude. Yeah, I have to stop. Otherwise, we're gonna go for another hour just me talking about these videos. But like, I even have clients reaching out. I have referral partners reaching out saying like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did this. Like, nobody else in your industry does this." And they don't have clients going back to them asking them questions. I don't have clients calling back, even if I am a stellar on the phone. It's like, this is something they can come back to repeatedly. Yeah, dude. Skill Mammoth, Alex, those videos were huge for me. So thank you for your help with that too.
No, my pleasure. And it was super fun to work with you on those. To make it less of a glazed session, because I will sit here and take the comments all day. My last question is, if you could automate any part of your personal life, like chores or errands, what would it be?
Man, I don't want to automate my personal life. I want to live every minute of that.
There you go.
Genuinely. I love automation in business. Yeah, even making the phone call to schedule the hair appointment. I enjoy that stuff too much. So I'm sorry. I'm copping out. No answer on that one.
That's okay. I will say, just from experience just today, and this is just litter boxes, let's automate those out of my life. And I know you got the fancy robots now, but you still got to collect the business. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, is automating that away. But awesome. Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks again for sharing your story and your insights. It was a pleasure exploring how you serve clients, tackle claims, stay on top of renewals. And I truly appreciate you taking the time to let us peek behind the curtain of your agency. To everyone listening, how do people find you, Paul?
You can reach out directly. You know, my email, my phone number. Should I share it here? Are you going to post it, or?
Yeah, I'll link it.
Okay, so Alex will link my email, my phone number. We have our website too. It's just pdomeier.com. All the fun, exciting stuff that the insurance industry allows you to have. That'd probably be best. Social media is just fine too. I'm pretty present in I would say, the real estate community here in Minnesota, in the insurance world. So if you see me at any of the local real estate events too, like, don't hesitate to come say hi. I love talking about this stuff. Business in general, I think you need to surround yourself with a team or people that can show you those black swans in your life or in business, and we can all kind of grow together that way.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. To everyone listening, if you haven't already, go ahead and like us on Spotify. Give us a good rating, as well as Apple Podcasts. That'll help us grow. This is episode 3. We got places to be, so go ahead and like us and rate us there. And obviously, if you're ready to streamline and automate your own workflows, whether you're in insurance or any other field, reach out to us at Skill Mammoth at skillmammoth.com. We'd love to help you reclaim your time, create a smoother experience for you and your clients. But with that, thanks for tuning in to Workflow Wonders. And until next time, keep optimizing those processes.